Hi guys, I'm Darren Melbourne. I'm the licensing director of Retro Games Limited. We brought you the C64 Mini, the C64 full size, and the A500 Mini.
Hello, welcome to the SteamWorld podcast. This time with Martin, Wisnowski, and me.
Hello, Jörg. I love you so much. You're such a good guy.
The American style. I love you too, brother. Pro. All right. So in a minute, I will be talking to Samantha, also known as Samtron5000, a console modder and repair guru. But before though, we have some news, and I wrote some stuff down. So let's talk about that. Interestingly, in the recent month and for next year, a lot of successors of old game IPs have been announced to come soon, to hit soon the shelves, or in one case already hit the shelf. And I guess let's start with Super Monkey Ball.
Oh, Super Monkey Ball. I know this from Nintendo DS. Woohoo! This was one of my first titles. It was one of the games that would actually really just like make use of this pen with a touchpad kind of thing. I really enjoyed it, and I think for me it was just like time where the Nintendo DS with its just like sort of innovative controls was giving out a bright future. Yeah, but unfortunately we all know that there was no that great games coming afterwards. The Nintendo DS, at least from my point of view, was just like stuck in a wave of bad games. I don't know, there came Nintendogs, but after that, so many games that were, at least from my point of view, were more just like time killers, you know, some devices you put to your kids so that they can just like shut up for some hours and to extend the playing time, but not really exciting games, at least I think so. There might be different opinions, but Super Monkey Ball was one of the first games giving this, you know, not outreach, but this perspective of what cool gaming on Nintendo DS could be. So yeah, Super Monkey Ball, I'm all into it. I played it. I have it also here somewhere at my place.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, originally it was an arcade machine in Japan that the DS version is based on, and also Super Monkey Ball was one of the launch titles of the first iPhone. Not the second iPhone, the iPhone 3G.
Is this already retro when we talk about first iPhone releases? I think so, maybe. I don't know.
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps.
I have nice here in my cupboard because I have an iPhone Touch, the first one of the iPhone Touch devices, you know, with some games on it.
You mean the iPod Touch?
iPod Touch, exactly.
Yeah, because the iPhone always had
it has some sort of values because there are games on it that are not available anymore on the game store. So.
Nice. Yeah.
Titles on it.
I remember when Epic was having a struggle with Apple and they were no longer allowed to offer Fortnite, that people actually sold their
10 years later.
Yeah. And I remember that users were actually selling their iPhones for hundreds of dollars just because their Apple ID had Fortnite.
This is what I meant. Just like, you know, where all of a sudden old not touched hardware don't make any update or whatever, you know, don't wipe. Get some certain value because the games are still on there. That's cool. I like it.
That's true. Yes. Well, and also there are some other games that have been announced. For example, Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is going to be released next year in 2025. And yeah. And also,
I was never a big Civilization player.
Me neither.
There are so many hardcore fans, but I never got into this game. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is a very interesting announcement, Joe.
It's interesting because I mean, even though it's not really my cup of tea either. I mean, what we report here is basically retro gaming, so I guess there are a lot of Civilization fans.
And the release is planned where? On which platforms?
Well, I just took the Steam release
Okay,
so
Steam.
far. I don't know if I don't know by heart now if other platforms would be supported. I guess most games are on the Switch
I know.
anyway.
I was just being curious, you know, nothing else.
Yeah. And also Bethesda announced there will be a new Indiana Jones title, and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is actually, the latest movie. So I guess it's just the game for the movie then. And that's also planned for next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And my personal favorite that's coming out 12th of September this year, and they also released a time-limited demo like last week, and that is the publisher Nacron, also French, and that is Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown.
Okay, this sounds weird. Test Drive. I don't know. Some people might remember Test Drive.
Oh, yes.
And I also heard that they are still there. I did not really follow it through, but yes. Okay, that sounds like an interesting thing. At least
Definitely.
to look at. I don't know.
Definitely.
I
mean, Test Drive, the original from 87 is still my favorite racing game. Yeah.
Played it. I hated it. Not really hate, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the interesting,
like being clueless about this game.
I mean the interesting thing is that Accolade, when they released Test Drive in 87, they actually included in the game a frame limiter in the game engine, so you can actually hook it up to the super CPU and play it on 20 Hz. And the engine is absolutely frame stable, and you actually have a good perception of speed. I mean, which is absolutely amazing, because most games on the C64 that have a 3D engine don't have a frame limiter, like Mercenary, for example. So when you hook up, for example, a super CPU with 20 Hz on it, the game runs too fast to control, like bloop,
Wow. Yeah.
So it was very forward thinking of Accolade to include a frame limiter. Like, hey, perhaps in 20 years somebody would like to play the game with the 20 times faster C64. I don't know.
I get it. For me as a game developer, I would say just like I'm not that much into game development for old hardware, but it sounds like just like delta times in the update function, not properly not installed, but umgesetzt. Because this is where delta times are for. If you know to make.
Yeah, you mean
this kind of. I don't know, if it's running too fast, then you will calculate in the delta time, that's fine. And you have a stable frame rates. So this is also interesting. So they just like expected to have a fixed a fixed frame rate update without delta time involved. Okay, wow, they did this really. This is really just like, you don't do that. That's sounds just like a beginner's mistake for me.
Well,
but
it's not.
I'm not into the deeps of C64 coding and how to deal with delta times when it comes to that. Yes.
The word you were looking for was probably
take it away for the listeners. Use delta times if you have the chance to do it.
I don't even know what delta times means.
It's
actually
just like this means you have an update function. It runs, and if you have slow hardware, it runs. If you have fast, it runs. And the delta time, this is the delta between your frame and the frame before. It's just like a parameter in your function that is a delta time in milliseconds, for example, or just like normalized parameter, and then you take this into account. So if you have fast hardware, then you use the result is just like normalized values, so that result on the screen will always be the same, no matter how fast your hardware is.
Well, I mean, what most people don't know, but that is also by early 386 and 384 PCs actually had a turbo button, which actually did not make the computer faster but slower when you pressed it, so that you could play old games on their intended speed.
Yeah, this is super funny, because I was lately also thinking about this kind of stuff, how funny this is. They offer a turbo button that
to make it slower.
Not make it slower, but even if it would make a turbo, if it would, it's just like, okay, you have the standard CPO, you make the default system slower, and make the default call turbo. It's like, wow, this is just like an awesome marketing gag.
Yeah, it's
almost just like comedy.
Yeah, because it's I mean, it's in as a child, I never understood why the computer would go slower if you enable the turbo function, and why it would go.
This I don't understand. Why should be this the case? Maybe because of weird programming also again. I don't know.
But I learned to make sure that it's never pressed, so that the computer would run on full speed. Well, anyway.
Search it's a very interesting thing what the turbo button actually really does, because I don't know it by my head. Because I think it's not really making things faster, but maybe skipping some sort of processing.
Well, I can tell you what it did for my 386, because I had the LCD display on it. Though the stock speed was 33 hertz, megahertz, and when I pressed it, it slowed it down to 16.
Yeah, but why is this then called turbo? It needs to shift some things.
I don't know.
It does something else, at least. It does something else.
I mean, if you were figuratively speaking,
listening to the podcast, please do it into the comments. Maybe you know what the turbo button actually really did.
Well, unfortunately, the inventors of the PC, of the Intel compatible PCs, IBM compatible PCs, all died in the last 20 years.
Really, because of data rot?
No, I mean the engineers died.
The engineers.
And interestingly, none of them died of old age. One drowned in a flooding, the other died in a plane crash, and all those weird stories. They all died of unnatural causes, which is like, wow. So super weird. Super weird. But hey, you never know what happens to your life. Anyway, other games being announced is also Metal Slug.
Oh, Metal Slug! Wow.
Yes.
That's a great game.
And that's released.
New release for PC also, or what? I don't know.
That's also for PC, okay. Yes.
Do they 3D? Do you know that?
No, it's 2D.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. It's announced for the fourth quarter of 2024, though this year still. And it's actually a co-publishing between .emu and Gamera Games. Never heard of Gamera Games before, but there you go. Yeah. I mean, I like Metal Slug. I have the first editions on my arcade behind me, so total amazing Metal Slug thing. Actually, interestingly, the last release of Metal Slug for the PC was actually the Metal Slug from Game Boy Advanced. So they just ported that to the PC, and that was the last release for the PC. And here's the interesting thing, that Metal Slug not only was released on the PC as as like we make an emulator and then play the ROM. No, they also reprogrammed the multiplayer, because obviously it's Game Boy Advanced, so the multiplayer would only work with a link cable.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually made it that for the PC you can play it online with your friend over the internet. So they actually
This
not
sounds,
only
really interesting, you know.
so they not only did an emulation release and said like, okay, we are done, but it was actually
try to preserve the experience of the original stuff, just like
exactly.
modern.
And also,
yeah,
also interesting, it was not done by a third party, but by SNK themselves.
oh, okay. This is also this. Okay.
Yeah. So the last release was actually 2019. That means this Metal Slug is now the first Metal Slug since 5 years. Not bad, yeah.
Yes.
and they were actually pretty cheap, because the Metal Slug for the PC, the release from 2019, was actually, they just took Metal Slug X and put another X behind it. So it's actually called Metal Slug Double X.
XX.
Yeah. And obviously you would think like, oh, is this the 20th installment? No, it's not. They just wanted a name that is
Or X.
separating them from the other releases.
Not triple X, that's fine.
triple X.
But then it gets censored.
Yeah, woo! You know, too spicy. Yeah, well, so as we can see, a lot of retro IPs.
I was lately reading some interesting article that was about the topic that 2023, so many just like sort of AAA titles were just released, you know, shitloads of stuff, just like, I don't know, just like, for example, new Zelda game for Switch and this and that. And that this year, because last year they were so packed with so many good releases, that this year there are not that much releases, you know, just like GTA 6 will come, I don't know, also not this year and so on. So there's just like a gap we have now when it comes to a big sort of releases, and this might be maybe one of the reason why this all retro kind of renew kind of stuff is coming along, or it would be also a good chance to use this time frame right now, because we are in between just like sort of blockbusters, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I found this a very interesting article. So
it's also interesting to mention that a lot of retro IP title releases lately were done by AA studios, not by AAA studios. So, as, for example, last November they released, you know, RoboCop Rogue City.
Oh, wow, this sounds cool.
And it was actually done by a AA studio, and absolutely amazing, because you are RoboCop and they're like poof, 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 poof. Yes. And then you know, and it's very gory, but that is like what RoboCop is like, and absolutely amazing.
Afterwards I have to check it out.
yeah. But you need a very, very capable PC, because it's using the latest no, I forgot it.
Graphic card.
No, the latest engine. No, I forgot it. What it's called?
We will figure it out.
What is the no, I forgot it. What was the engine? Let's see. Wait. Let me Google that real quick. Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine.
Yeah, Unreal Engine. Yes.
The latest Unreal Engine. So it's like woo.
Unreal Engine. Wow, this sounds like something to check out.
Yeah. And also another game title that was also released by a AA studio. And here's the interesting part. It's actually their first game release, and it was an Epic Store exclusive for a year. But now the year's over, and they released Star Trek Resurrenge on Steam. And the studio is actually called Dramatic Labs. And they are an interesting studio because they are formed by former employees of Telltale Games. And who knows about Telltale knows that all those adventure games they have are done with, multiple story branches. And you have multiple ways of interacting with the characters. And depending on what your choice is, the game has good or bad endings. So you can actually change the narrative of the game. And it's, the press said, especially in Germany, it's the best Star Trek game in the last 20 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
So I
So
was lately really enjoying. It's called Vader Immortal for VR.
Yeah.
I have an Oculus 3 for some months now, and this is also very.
Wow.
I was a little bit surprised that it was released already 4 years ago, but this is really nice. I mean, it's very casual gaming sort of stuff, but it's very good made.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that a lot of such big IPs are not used by AAA studios because they are like, yeah, well, is it really worth to put the money down for the license?
Constraints maybe coming along.
Exactly. But then they are like, okay, we are a new studio. Why not let our first game be a Star Trek game? Like, woo, you know? And here's the interesting part, which I totally find amazing. They actually got the original actors as for the voiceover. So Jonathan Frakes is in it, you know? And also you meet old characters. So it's kind of a mix between the original Star Wars, Star Trek, the original Star Trek, and Star Trek Next Generation. So it's actually you meet.
Star Trek, you meant? Sorry.
Yeah. So Star Trek, yes. So you actually meet Captain Riker because he's a captain now with his own ship,
Yes.
and you also meet Ambassador Spock.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because Leonard Nimoy, as we all know, is dead since some years now. But they found somebody who has the exact same voice range as the dead actor.
Okay.
So when I played the game, and then you have very early on in the game you have Ambassador Spock, and you're like, oh my god, this sounds like the original Spock. And you are totally
like something a very interesting game to check out. Sorry.
Yeah. But it also uses the latest Unreal Engine, so be advised you also need.
And Unreal. It seems like Unreal is really making the game above Unity.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, wow. So I mean, this is crazy. And of course, you know, the same thing here happens with both games, with RoboCop, Rogue City, and with Star Trek Resurrenge, that there's always a German complaining, why are there no German voices? You know, we want German voices. And it's like, dude, this is a AA studio and it's published by a AA publisher. They don't have the money to translate the game with voiceover in like every possible language. it's English only, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, but the experience is not like original. And I'm like, I tell you a secret, that what you see in Germany is not the original experience either, because
Yeah, because it's translated.
you know, and then it's like, you know, and then people are like complaining why there are new voices and stuff, like because the original voice actor is dead, perhaps, you know. People are so cringy sometimes, you know. It's so weird. ah yeah.
All right.
But
What's next on the list?
yeah. Anyway, just wanted to say, it's like, oh god, yeah. So anyway, the other, yeah, there's actually just two more. One is an article by development of an exposed, long exposed former Twitter by a development from the Tomb Raider 1 till 3 remake.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually told a story, a long thread about a fan who is harassing him because of bugs the fan found in the remaster of Tomb Raider 1 to 3. And it's a long story of being harassed, and I'm like, oh my god. So it's an interesting read. Perhaps check it out if you're interested. And yeah, and the last bit I've got is actually about Tamagotchi. So obviously the original Tamagotchi has two NPCs, Moll and Laura, and in the 90s and until recently, there was only a known method to activate both characters by a battery glitch.
Oh, okay.
And now this person found a way of activating them by letting the Tamagotchi die in a certain way.
Okay, wow, this sounds super weird.
I know, yeah. It's so super weird.
It might be some content that I would dig into.
It's so super weird that the German media outlet I got it from actually put a warning, like if you are very sensitive to the topic's death and so on, perhaps don't read it, because it's very cruel what you have to do to your Tamagotchi.
Check it out. I have some old Tamagotchi at my parents' place.
Yeah, try it out. It might work there.
Might be maybe a good situation to bring it back.
Yeah. Well, that would be all that I've got.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So let's jump to the interview. Bye. Nice. Today we have another guest, and today we have Samantha, also called Samtron5000, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, interestingly, you came in the picture for me because the algorithm of X suggested, like, you are following Vultar, you might like following her too, and then I was like, okay, why not? And then when I did some research, I found out that there are traces in the retro scene about you since 2007. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been at least online, yeah.
Okay, that means before that time you have been offline tinkering with stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, offline too. I was working at video game stores from like 2005, I guess.
Yeah, that's usually our first question with any guest we have. How did it all start that you get into computer and retro in particular?
Well, I guess at the time, it wasn't even really, well, some of it was retro, but some of it wasn't retro at the time. I was just into games in general, and grew up playing games, and even through my teenage years played a lot of Dreamcast and all that stuff. And then when it was time for me to get a job, I decided to go apply at a video game store. There was this really tiny little video game store in Oklahoma City, which is where I'm originally from. And it was called Game Time. And I just walked in there, and there was a guy sitting there who was the owner of the store. And I just walked up to him and I said, point at any of these games and I'll tell you what that game is about and why you should play it. And he was like, oh, wow, okay. And so I told him that I was looking for a job, and he invited me to stay at the store and come behind the counter and just talk to customers and see if I could sell any games. And I did, and he hired me, and I ran that store for a year by myself.
Really? How did that happen?
Yeah, I ran that store for a year by myself. I was 17 at the time.
Ooh.
And then him and his brother wanted to sell their game store. They wanted to get out of the game business and only do cell phones, which we also did at that store. We did cell phones there. Okay. And he offered to sell it. He offered to sell it to me, and my mom talked me out of it because she said I was too young. So I didn't buy the store from him, and I ended up going to a different store called Game Crazy, it was a popular chain years ago in the United States, through a video rental place called Hollywood Video, and worked there. And then after that, I was headhunted by a vice president of another small chain called Vintage Stock in the United States. The vice president was scoping out the area. They were getting ready to open a new store in that area, and nobody had ever heard of that store before in Oklahoma City. He came into my store, and I guess some people from other stores around Oklahoma City had told him about me. And then he came into my store. I didn't know who he was. I just helped him like a normal customer. And then later I got a call from him at the store, and he said, do you know who I am? And I was like, no. How can I help you? Like, what can I do for you? And he offered me a job to run his store, his new store that he was opening. And so I went to work for him for a few years, and then it was at that time that's when I started doing YouTube and got involved with some magazines and stuff like that. And all through that whole time, I was also going to tournaments for my favorite fighting game at the time was Soul Calibur, so I went to a lot of tournaments for that, traveled around the region, and went to some anime conventions that also had game stuff, and worked there, and I knew a lot of the local collectors in the area and did business with them separate from the stores. And yeah, I was like the game girl in Oklahoma City anyway, way before I got on the internet to do stuff.
Interesting. So that means what is there that you didn't do? I mean,
yeah,
you
right?
just mentioned so much. Amazing. Yeah. Are you also doing cosplay and stuff?
Yeah, I did do, I have done some cosplay, but not a lot. It was when I was working at some anime conventions, my boss at Vintage Stock talked me into doing it to get people to come to our booth. So There's pictures of me in cosplay floating around somewhere.
Interesting, interesting. Huh. And at some point you decided you stop all that and then you become a hardware tinkerer, basically.
Yeah. After years and years, I had started getting into doing repairs and mods really early on. My old boss at my first job taught me some stuff, but I didn't really I wasn't really good at soldering or didn't know anything about electronics at the time. He just taught me some tricks, how to fix this and that. And I installed a mod chip by myself once very badly with my boyfriend at the time in my bedroom on the floor, carpeted floor, doing everything wrong.
Ooh, okay.
And then I, after quitting YouTube, and then I streamed for a while and I stopped doing that, and I wasn't doing anything except just PC stuff. And then I randomly found this guy on Instagram called iFixRetro, and I saw his pictures, and I was like, oh my God, this is what mods look like now? It didn't look anything like this before. I had no idea. And so I just commented on his posts and started messaging him, and I was like, please teach me how to do this. Show me. I don't know anything about this. I want to learn. And he started giving me projects to work on until I figured it out.
So that means you don't have any electronics degree, you are self-taught, kind of.
Right. Yep.
That's interesting, because we had other people on the podcast before who do repairs and mods and so on, and they always had a hardware development background, yeah, I'm studying hardware development, or, it's interesting. Okay, why not? I mean, in the end, one would surprised how much not good working people are on the market.
Yep.
I mean, before UK left the European Union, I actually had somebody in UK that I would send my consoles to for repair, and it turned out that the repair were so bad in quality that I had to get them all fixed a second time by a female modder here in Germany. And I was like, oh my God. So basically I paid for the same work to be done twice. I was like, oh my God, and how can such people have 100% positive reviews on eBay with such a bad quality of repair or modding? And I was so surprised how people sometimes get by, I mean, for example, for the Game Gear, you have a mod to put an LCD screen in, which is interestingly the same mod you also have for the Lynx. And there is a version that you also can connect to a VGA monitor, but to activate the VGA output, you have to solder a wire to the contrast dial of the Game Gear so you can switch it. And he forgot to solder that on. So it was sent to me, and the VGA output didn't work. And then he claimed, yeah, he couldn't read the manual. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The manual is in German and English. If I can read it, you can read it as well. So I learned good reviews on eBay or a good reputation can still mean a bad repair or mod, just because obviously as somebody like me who has no idea about hardware or repair or whatever, I don't open the stuff. I just trust that the work is done in a good way. And sometimes it's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So what I would recommend to anybody who needs to get repairs or mods, do your research. Don't just look for the cheapest, or even on eBay, they have like really good ratings. Like, do your research, go and find them on social media. Any really good modder who is actually selling their service. There are other really good modders who are not on social media, and they aren't actually selling services anymore. They're just kind of like underground. You can find them on message boards and stuff.
Okay.
But the ones that are selling service, they are going to have social media, and they're going to have detailed photos showing their
Right.
mod. And so if you go on eBay and you see somebody who's selling something like a Pico Boot GameCube with a fan and all of these extra things, but they don't have any pictures of the inside, they just have pictures of the outside, and they have pictures of it working, I would not trust that. I would not trust that, because I can't tell you how many times I or any of my associates get mods in or get consoles in that we have to reverse the mod and redo it. And when we have to do that, we usually charge double, because we have to take everything out and completely redo it from scratch. So do your research and find somebody that really aligns with you, somebody that you click with. You know, you like their posts, you like their personality, you like their work, you trust them. Ask your friends, if any of your friends are into modding, ask around online, ask on Twitter who are some good modders that I can go to, and just do your research. Don't just go for the cheapest price. One of my pet peeves is when I get emails asking how much something is, and then all of my friends also get the same email from the same person. People don't realize that we all talk. We all like hand each other jobs and recommend each other, and we talk about, you know, what we're doing. And if you're sending mass emails to every modder asking like how much, you know, it's not good. Go with somebody who, don't go with the cheapest price. Go with the person that you know, that you really feel like is going to do your work well, that you can trust, and that you feel comfortable with. Because these consoles now are, some of them are so ancient and so fragile, and becoming more and more rare as time goes on, because some of them do get destroyed beyond, you know, repair. Like, it just can't be fixed with like too much corrosion, and, you know, there are chips that go bad, and you can't get those chips anywhere else. They're proprietary chips that company made for that console, and that's the only way that you can get them, is by harvesting them from another console and putting it into that one. So, you know, it's really, really, really important that if you're going to get any work done, you are very careful with who you pick, and that you really do research and vet who you're going to send your console to, because there are a lot of really good modders, and there are a lot of really bad ones too. There are a lot of people that are putting out horrible work, horrible.
And they're still making a living out of it, because
they're probably making a better living than me, to be honest with you.
I mean, the thing is, he kind of kicked himself out, because there started some weird things happening, because I was like, hey, if I send you something to fix, can I also send you, you know, my NES Maniac Mansion cartridge to change the buffer battery for the save games, you know? And then he returned like, then he said like, the game is broken. And I'm like, I doubt the game is broken. I guess you probably didn't cut your lockout chip off your NES. No, I don't have a lockout chip in my NES. So I was like, okay, so send it to this guy in Canada, because I know he is a good repro builder for NES games. And it turns out the game is fine. Obviously, the guy had a lockout chip in his NES. And as somebody who repairs consoles, not to know what a lockout chip is on the NES, that's like basic knowledge. I was like,
that was like the first
shit.
mod that I ever did. Like if you go on my YouTube and you go way back in my YouTube channel, that's like my first video is how to disable a lockout chip. I wouldn't tell everybody to do that all the time, but that was one of those tricks that my first boss taught me how to do.
It's the easiest thing. Just cut one leg and there you go. But I was like, oh my god, are you serious? You know? And I remember I also sent in a Game Boy Advanced SP because the case was totally broken, and also the charging mechanism was broken, so it wouldn't charge any longer. And he totally didn't know that there are different revisions of the screen with backlight and front light. And he almost exchanged it with the wrong kind of screen. But luckily, I was lucky enough to notice that he has no idea what he's talking about. And I told him, no, you can't just take a $5 or pound Game Boy Advance SP and just pull the screen out of it. Yeah, anyway, just some examples of my experience. I was like, holy crap, how is that possible, you know? Yeah. So this is where I learned not everybody who is claimed to be an expert in repair or modding is actually know what he is doing, you know?
For sure.
Yeah. So I learned that lesson the hard way. Yeah. I mean, nowadays...
there are a lot of there are a lot of armchair engineers out there who will like criticize other people's soldering, like my soldering or Voltar soldering, or you know, somebody who does it all day every day, you know, like yeah, I'm not designing boards or anything right now, but I am soldering all day, and they will just try to criticize you, saying that you're doing it wrong, and it's like, I'm not doing it wrong. I'm doing it right. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this, and they're not actually doing anything. Like I've had to leave groups on Facebook.
Really?
For people just being so rude about it, you know, and they just like, and I'm like, let me see your work. Let me see boards that you've populated, you know, let's see. And they have nothing. They have nothing to show. They've not designed anything. They've not, you know, built anything. They just collect oscilloscopes, I think. I don't know.
And then there are also experts I found who actually can do things like super complex reproduction of super complex cartridges for the NES or whatever that need special kind of ICs and stuff. But when it comes to the basic, you know, the difference between NTSC and PAL and 110 to 20 to 220 volts, they know nothing. And
really?
And I'm really wondering, how can you be specialized in one thing but totally not know the basics? It's like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
So it totally surprises me. And such people are on Etsy and providing their services. And was like, wow. So I'm lucky that the cartridge works in the end, because somehow he made it right. But he had no idea why it's working. It's working, but he has no idea why it's working and how it's working. But he got it working. Oh, wow, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you really can get stuff to work without knowing what you're actually doing. I mean,
oh, for sure. Yeah, I do see that. I do see that a lot. And honestly, like, even me, I would not consider myself an expert in like all aspects. I'm still learning every single day. I find new information. I learn new things about different consoles. Even like my mentors, like iFix Retro, who brought me into this. You know, I'll find some new information and share it with him, and he'll be like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that. He's been doing this for like 10 years or something." You know, and there's always more to learn, but you'll find that like the people that are going around, you know, claiming that they are like absolutely an expert and never like seeking new knowledge, those are the people who know the least. They really don't know anything, and they aren't willing to learn. So that's mostly what I started this for, was just to learn. And then after a few years of doing it under my mentor, and him helping me, then finally he was like, okay, now you're at a point where, you know, I can trust that I can talk about you and introduce you to people, and you're not going to embarrass me. You know?
Okay.
Because
like, yeah, it's totally interesting.
His reputation on the line for me, you know, to, you know, tell people about me. So it's it took me a couple of years, but there are people who just start selling this stuff after their first time, their very first time, and they just start selling it. And there are game stores here in Las Vegas where I live, and other cities, I'm sure in Germany too, where there are people who work at those game stores that are doing it too, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're doing it wrong, and nobody's ever told them that they're doing it wrong. They're selling bad products. Yeah, it's like I said, you really gotta vet people. You really gotta see the pictures, see the proof, more than just seeing it work at first, because it can work at first, you know, and then it's gonna short or something. And
yeah, I learned if you make the wire for the VGA mod just finicky enough that it barely holds on the solder point, that after you dial it for a couple of times, it will break off, and then hey, another repair.
Yeah, there are situations where if you make the wire too long, it will mess up the mod, or if you use the wrong kind of wire, the wrong gauge or the wrong kind of wire, it's not going to work right, you know. But there are a lot of people that don't know that. There are a lot of people that don't know that, and fortunately for me, I did have a mentor to tell me stuff like that, because some of these people, it's not necessarily their fault that they don't know, because I didn't know. There was a time when I didn't know that either. They just don't have anybody to tell them, you know, that this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and you know, it's not their fault. But I feel like they probably shouldn't be selling those services or those consoles, you know, because sometimes they're breaking stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, unfortunately, even if you show me pictures of your work, I wouldn't be able to tell if it's good work or bad work. I mean, I know that Katja Becker, who is the one in Germany that used to have such services, she would send me photos on WhatsApp, and I'm like, no need. I don't understand if the wire is thick enough anyway or whatever. I have no idea, you know.
So
I'm just a user, you know. So, but thank you for the photos.
Yeah, so if you aren't really sure what it should look like, pay attention to who people say are, you know, the best in the industry, and go look at their pictures, and you know, maybe to an extent they are too expensive for you or something, because some of them do charge quite a lot for their services, and you want to go with somebody who's not as big of a name as them. Look at their pictures and compare it to other people's, you know, like I can show you, like this This is a mess. This is not.
Flying wires, I think, is the term for that,
this
right?
This is not good. Here, I've got another one. Really, you just gotta do some research and figure out this is not good. Several things are wrong with this. But you just gotta like look at pictures, good pictures of whatever mod you want done, and then look at whoever you're hiring to do the mod and see, you know, is it similar? And you can look at pictures of soldering and figure out, you know, is this, you can easily Google like soldering and see what cold solder joints look like and what solid solder joints look like and stuff like that. And, you know, gauge just based on that. I mean, like really it like some of these mods are, the consoles are really expensive. The repairs are even more expensive, and the mods are also very expensive. So it's worth spending an hour or two Googling and just looking at what, you know, good versus bad looks like, and then figuring out who you want to go with. I really do advise it, like whoever's going to get into stuff like this, because you could really lose your investment. There are times where like this is fried. There's no coming back.
Yeah, luckily all the stuff was fixable that I got so far. But here's a few questions. Some people were really mad on me that I got an NES with the stereo mod. People were like, you shouldn't put a stereo mod on the NES because it's not original anymore, and you know.
Well, that's the whole point of, you know, the mods, is to bring it into the new age. You know, a lot of the stuff that I do is not original. Like this mod, this is not mine. This is one that somebody sent in to me to repair, and I couldn't repair it. This mod is to play backup copy games and also other region games.
Sounds like PlayStation.
Yeah, this is a PlayStation 2. This is a PlayStation 2, and this mod is called a modbo, and that's what it does. Is it allows you to play backup games and other region. It makes your PlayStation 2 region free. So that's not original. You know, we put RGB amps and mods, and we put HDMI ports in consoles that never had an HDMI port. It didn't even exist when those consoles were made.
Yeah.
So we do all kinds of stuff, and we're doing that to bring it into the modern age, because there are so many people who want to play their original console on the hardware that they have now. So like their 4K TV, they want to play it on that, or they want to use like a retro tank or something like that, and make they're really into RGB aesthetics, and they just want to make it look as amazing as possible, like just beautiful colors and beautiful crisp pixels. And part of it is, to me, one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing this was because, you know, I used to work in the game stores back in the 2000s, and I did a lot of collecting back then. But when I was doing the collecting, these games back here were not, you know, $100 or $500 or $1,000, you know, like Earthbound. I have several copies of Earthbound. I have complete copies of Earthbound. It was like maybe $80, maybe. You know, it was not that expensive back then.
Right,
and
right.
I hate what has happened to the retro game community and how inflated it has become to where it's prohibitive to most people. And we have people who are spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on games that they are not ever going to play. They're not ever going to play them. They're just going to sit on a shelf, and you know, their chips in their cartridges are going to go bad, or they're going to get corroded, or you know, the discs that they have were sitting in a storage unit, and now they have disc rot, and these people don't even realize that their discs have disc rot, and they're just rotting away on their shelves. And those games are not going to be playable in 20 years. You're not going to be able to play those Sega CD games on the original disc in 20 years. Like, it's just not gonna happen, and they're not playing them, and so many people who want to play those games can't play those games.
I see. That's also a tough topic. I mean, especially in America, a lot of YouTubers announced this year that they are going to quit collecting just because the prices are inflated so much. But here now I have so many questions because you mentioned some remarks on the side. Is cartridges going bad a thing?
It can happen with the so inside of every cartridge there are chips, and they can be programmed and stuff right now. But like say you have your childhood game, your save file, toast, you know, and there's something else that's called trace rot, where the traces on the board can become rotted out, basically. So you can remake the game, you know, and you can still use a cartridge, but the original one, the cartridge is not such a big deal, but the disc games, especially Sega Saturn, Sega CD, Neo Geo CD, that era of disc-based gaming, those discs were not well made.
So I'm lucky that my disc still works then.
Yeah. As long as you take good care of them, they should be okay for not forever, you know, but they should be okay for, you know, a long time. But there are going to be less and less discs that are playable over time.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how much you know about that, but for example, some years ago, the designer of the circuit board of the game Pure Solar from Watermelon, which was their first game for the Mega Drive, which is called Genesis in America, and he said that the cartridge design, the circuit boards and so on, is so bad that the game would stop working in 10 years from now, given the game is from 2010. So actually somebody on AliExpress from China released a pirate version with a better board design, so that the game wouldn't destroy itself over time. And the board designer of the original board said it was made because it was cheaper this way. But every time you start the cartridge, it's aging faster, a little bit more each time you put it under juice, and at some point the game cartridge will destroy itself. And at first I thought this is bullcrap, that can't happen. But then some years ago there was a scandal by some Chinese suppliers offering multi game cartridges with the wrong diodes on them, so they would have too much voltage, and it could potentially damage the console even by by running those cartridges, and I was like, wow, so this is really a thing.
Yeah, you can damage your console with cartridges that are made incorrectly. You can damage your console with video cables.
Really?
That aren't built correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't personally seen it, but I have read about that, because me personally, I'm not really into the whole RGB, like S-video, like YPVR stuff. Like I don't really care that much about that stuff. But there are people who very much do care about that, and there are cheap cables that you can buy on Amazon and stuff that can, so I've heard, damage your console because of incorrect voltages coming through. I haven't even built one of those cables myself,
Wow,
but
okay.
there are people who build these cables, like HD Retrovision. Those guys, they build like some of the best cables for the major consoles: PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Super Nintendo, and Genesis, and their cables are really well built, and they're not going to damage your console. But you get those cables are expensive. You know, they're like $30-$40. You can get one on Amazon, a cheap knockoff thing that some little company made, and it's not well built, and pay $10, and maybe it could damage your console. Yeah.
Interesting. Luckily, that never happened to me.
Yeah.
But back to the scandal about the cartridges damaging your console. Interestingly, that was at the same time that Capcom re-released Mega Man for the NES and Street Fighter for the Super Nintendo. They actually wrote on the back of the cartridges that the cartridges can cause potential fire hazard. I was like, holy cow, they were really very scared about that. But one would think that companies like Capcom know what they are doing, hopefully. But I guess it was just for law reason to not get sued or whatever. But here's another question. You mentioned associates, so you actually have people hired working with you?
No.
Okay.
I don't have anybody hired. By associates, I mean like other modders that I associate with. So
okay.
I would almost even call them like my coworkers in a way.
Okay.
You know,
like it sounded like it. Okay.
Yeah, like I Fix Retro, Jose Cruz, and Mobius. He's really good. Zaxor, Voltar, of course. He's definitely like a mentor to me.
The question is if he will continue after what happened to him, you know?
Oh, I hope he does. I messaged him immediately after that, and I was like, do not stop. Do not stop. I swear, do not. Please do not.
Because he kind of lost it on X, blocking people left and right to ask questions about it. I was like, oh my god. Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been really annoyed by that too. I probably would have just stopped responding, or locked my post.
Yeah, that's exactly was my thought. Like, sleep over it 2 nights and then respond to people, and not like instantly respond to people, block them, because you might regret it later. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, everybody handles stuff differently. So, you know, I'm like, one thing that I was told coming into this whole thing was to remain as neutral as possible. Just because you don't want to make any enemies, and you never know what's going on in somebody else's life, you know, behind their computer screen or their phone screen, or, you know, just behind the curtain. You just really don't know what other people are going through or what their motivations are. So it's better just to remain neutral and stay professional. And so that's what I've always done.
Can you actually make enemies in that field? Oh my God.
Yes. Yes, there is a lot of drama in the retro game community. Like more, so obviously I'm a woman and I'm in lots of like women-oriented groups on Facebook and stuff like that for moms or just women. And I see more drama in male-dominated gaming spaces or in the gaming industry as a whole than I have ever seen in any like female-oriented group.
Wow, okay.
Like I've had situations where, I've gone into a disagreement with another girl, and we both start, going at each other. And then we're like, wait a minute. Actually, we should be friends because your insults are kind of really, really good. So, I think I actually like you and we should be friends. So, but not in the retro game community, especially. There's a lot of infighting.
I mean, my general problem was always, at the past at least, that whatever happened in Europe stayed in Europe, whatever happened in America, Canada stayed there. That is actually why I started doing the Scene World stuff, because in the year 2000 and in 1998 and 1999, I thought there must be more outside of Europe, and everybody told me, at least in the Commodore 64 scene, there's no activity in America. It's all dead. They are all just user groups sitting there, using GEOS, whatever, but there are no demo sceners, whatever. And then I was like, I can't believe that. And then I got in touch with people. And one of the first people, I guess you know her, is actually Sherry Ellsworth. Probably you know her. I don't know. Yeah, okay. You're not in the Commodore 64 realm.
Yeah, I'm not.
But she is in the Commodore 64 realm. She is kind of a hero because she is a computer designer, and in the year 2000, 2002, being a computer designer and being female, and she is the designer of the DTV. So the So and everybody from America who was a guy was making Photoshop picture of her, and then like I tell you something, she is lesbian. So the chance that she would be interested in any of you guys is zero. But that was like, oh my God, it was so cringy for me, because like, guys, how deep can you fall to make such shit? But
yeah, I'm actually really lucky that I haven't really encountered a lot of like harassment, I guess. Me personally, even like when I was on YouTube, and at the time I was like one of the big game YouTubers. I didn't have that many subscribers. Nobody did. Nobody had a lot of subscribers back then. But like, I'm sure you know the website 4chan.
Sure.
Yeah, they liked me somehow. Like they thought that I was the real deal. I wasn't like trying to get attention from men, which is what, a lot of people think a lot of girls are trying to do. I don't necessarily think that, but I didn't, in a lot of my videos, I didn't show myself that often, and I was usually wearing, a decent amount of clothes, and I wasn't like trying to be cute and stuff. I was just talking about the game, and that's all it was. It was just me talking about a game that I wanted other people to play that I thought people hadn't played. So, and they liked me. You know, I didn't have any weird Photoshopped pictures of me that I ever saw, or there were memes.
Yeah. Well.
There were memes about me, but they weren't like inappropriate or anything that made me feel uncomfortable or bullied or, you know, worried or anything. Like, they were very kind to me. A lot of my supporters were on there. The only thing is, when I stopped doing YouTube and I fell off the face of the earth suddenly.
Why did you stop doing YouTube?
Well, I'll get to that, but when that happened, they went crazy and they came up with all of these theories of what happened to me, and I have memes saved in a folder from that time. I'll send it to you. But basically, the reason why I dropped off the face of the earth is because, and this is kind of crazy story, but I randomly decided to go to Tokyo, and I was going to learn Japanese because I thought that it would help me with import Japanese games.
And can you speak it?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
少しだけ. But yeah, so I went to Japan to go to Japanese language school, and I only knew 2 people in Japan at that time, and one of them was another popular YouTuber from the time, which was Maggie Bon. She was the girl that was on YouTube that would like get real close to the camera and look up, and she'd be like, "Konnichiwa, Maggie Bon desu."
So those cute Japanese faces and stuff. Okay.
Yeah. She was. If you were on YouTube back then and I showed you her picture, you would recognize her instantly because she was very, very popular. And so she was my best friend at the time. And then the other person that I knew was somebody who was my pen pal for a long time before that. A guy who's like 2 years older than me. And I ended up getting pregnant because, you know, I was spending time with him within like the first little while of being there. And I was so humiliated with the situation that I just stopped making YouTube videos, because I knew that, like, if I go on YouTube like this and I talk about this, they are going to tear me apart. They will tear me apart for this. So I just said nothing, and I didn't post anything on social media about it. And they came up with these crazy ideas that I got kidnapped by Yakuza and forced to stay there against my will. And it was just like really wild stories that they made up. And people still, every once in a while, you'll see somebody post about it, even still today. They'll be like, "You remember Samtron5000? The girl that got kidnapped by Yakuza? He used to make really good YouTube videos."
Well, if they can Google, they can find you on X, right?
Yeah, they can find me. They can find me on there. They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on YouTube still. I still post stuff on YouTube. They can find me anywhere. So
wow, that's a turn of the interview I didn't expect to happen. But hey, yeah,
it's a part of my history.
Wow. Yeah, so you are really special in your life, in your way of living and what happened to you. Totally different.
Yeah, I've done some crazy life, crazy stuff.
So that is why you asked me if I did my research and what I know about you.
Yeah, because that's like a big part of the Samtron5000 legacy, was that I got kidnapped by the Yakuza and I was forced to stay in Japan against my will for almost 10 years. So,
wow. Okay. And but somehow you returned to the US.
I did, yeah. I just didn't. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I was not happy there, and my ex-husband was not the greatest at the time, and my kids and I came back to the United States, and well, it was their first time ever living in the United States. They were born in Tokyo and grew up there up until then. But yeah, I was single mom and
tough.
Poverty, low wage.
But now, thanks to retro tinkering, you are not poverty above the poverty line, hopefully.
Well, yeah. I mean, this doesn't. So I got remarried last year.
Oh,
so,
wow! So quite fresh still.
Yeah, but I have known him since like 2000.
Okay.
So he was like one of my best friends for 20 plus years.
So you didn't friend zone him?
No.
Yeah, but I mean, thanks for your trust. I mean, normally I don't end up discussing relations of people in those interviews. But hey, if that is a part of your history, not a problem. But I'm glad that you now found the right partner and the better place of living back in the US compared to Japan. I mean, I can only speak about my experiences when I was in Japan, in Tokyo for a week in 2017, and also when I deal with sellers from Japan, I noticed there are like two types of Japanese. Either they are fluent in English and then they talk your ear off and talk, and at some point are like, can we slow down a bit? Like, can you please give me some space? You know, like, I don't know. It was like a bit too much. Like, they are so happy that they can speak to somebody speaking English. They don't stop talking. Or you have those Japanese that don't talk any English at all, and surprisingly, it's even people hired to guide tourists. Like I was at the Sky Tower in
Skytree.
Pardon?
Skytree.
Yeah, exactly, Skytree Tower. That's exactly. And so I wanted to know how I get back to the parking space of the tourist buses, you know? So and the person that was supposed to guide the tourists around the space, she confused left with right and elevator with escalator. And I was like, how is that possible? How on earth is that possible? If that was happening to somebody in Germany that works in the tourist space, he would be fired on the spot for talking bullshit with foreigners, you know? If you can't speak the language, you can't be hired in a position where you have to speak the language all the time, you know? It just doesn't match. And I was like, how is that possible, you know? Or for example, I was having a sightseeing tour with a sightseeing bus, and the bus stop would only announce the bus stops, the next bus is coming, approaching, in Japanese, which doesn't really make sense if the bus you are waiting for is for tourist guiding.
For tourists, yeah.
Yeah, and so somebody came, and so to make sure that I'm not missing my bus because I can't understand Japanese. And then I was trying to have a conversation with her, and then I realized she doesn't understand a single word I'm saying. I was like, holy crap, how's that possible?
Yeah.
So, wow. So I always wonder, when people are hired for working with tourists, how do those job interviews go? Like, can you say yes and no? Okay, good enough. I don't know. It must be like, wow. It's really, really, really surprising. And it never happened to me in any other country before, only in Japan.
So with Japanese people, the way that the education system teaches English is that they don't do a lot of speaking and listening with English. They do a lot of reading and writing, and there are a lot of tests that are required for a lot of Japanese people to take to be able to get into schools, like the high school they want to go to, or the middle school they want to go to, or whatever. But those tests mostly are reading and writing. So what I would recommend any visitor to Tokyo, especially, is if you're finding that they don't seem like they understand, try writing it down on your phone and just showing it to them, because it's more likely that they're going to be able to understand what you're trying to say by reading it, and they'll be able to reply to you than listening, because well, for one thing, English, people speak English in so many different accents. So
like my German one.
exactly. Like my accent is very different from your accent. Even the United States
Luckily,
has like
because you are a
7
native
different
English
accents.
speaker, you are supposed
Exactly.
to be better than me.
Right. So the best way is to write it down, because it's really hard for them to listen and comprehend what you're saying. They might only catch a little bit of it, and it's even harder for them to actually vocalize what they want to say, and they're very shy and they're embarrassed to speak Japanese, because
to speak
Japanese
English,
people, huh?
They are very embarrassed to speak English, you mean, not Japanese.
Yeah, sorry.
English.
Yeah, they're embarrassed to speak English, because the way that Japanese culture is that they don't like to make mistakes, and they don't like to inconvenience others or make others feel uncomfortable, because it makes them feel even more uncomfortable. So, like, if that girl that gave you the incorrect instructions that you mentioned earlier, if she had known that that she gave you the wrong instructions, if she found out about that later, she would have been absolutely mortified.
Yeah. Now the question is it really a language barrier if you confuse left with right? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest.
I don't know, honestly, but especially if she was using like her hands, if she was like, this is
I don't remember.
left, go left.
I don't remember. Yeah.
But yeah, they're very embarrassed, and they don't like to be put on the spot for things, and they don't like to get involved with other people's troubles.
But then why are you hired for a job where your primary task is to deal with tourists? That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me.
For sure. That's one of those situations where, yeah, for sure, she should have, been a little bit better at that. But if you go to some other places, you're going to definitely encounter Japanese people who don't speak any English, or they probably do understand some English. They learned English all the way through elementary school, middle school, and high school. And if they went to university, they studied it there too. But they still don't want to speak English.
Don't have the confidence.
Right, it's a confidence thing. But there are, like you said, there are other Japanese people who are very confident in their English, and they want to practice it.
And they then overdo it.
They'll force you to practice it even if you can speak Japanese. So that would happen to me a lot, where I would want to speak Japanese and they just would not speak Japanese with me. They would reply in English no matter what I said. If I said, blah 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 in Japanese, then they would reply in English, and then I'd say something else in Japanese, and they reply in English again. I'm like,
Wow. Wow.
okay, I guess we're speaking English.
Wow. Yeah, of course, it's not all bad. I mean, for example, when I entered entered Japan, the humidity was so high that I was sweating like mad. And the guy for immigration actually thought I'm hiding something or so. So that was actually the first time when I traveling that my whole baggage was controlled. Everything. Yeah. And he, of course, he spoke English every day with foreigners.
Yeah.
He totally like, wow, you have Tetris shoes. How nice. So you are a gamer, eh? I'm like, yeah. He was like, oh. And I was like, can you please get done with researching if I have some drugs or whatever in my baggage, and can we move on, please? You know, but he was totally like having a conversation about video games with me, somebody of immigration. I was like, holy cow, okay. And also the guy from the hotel reception, he also was like, wow, asking me a lot of stuff, and I was like, I just want to go to my room and sleep. But of course you can't say that, because then it would appear rude. And I was like, okay, I'm going through this, I'm brave enough, of course. But those people, of course, they have to speak to people every day. There it was more a problem when I went to Peru, that the immigration officer was totally pissed that he has to speak English with me because I don't know a word of Spanish, and he was totally pissed. He was like only saying yes and welcome. Like,
Wow.
okay, yeah. The grumpy immigrations officer. And I was like, wow, you know, Latin America, everybody's happy, everybody's friendly. And now I'm meeting this guy who is totally pissed, and he's working at immigrations. So he's dealing with people who don't speak Spanish all the time. So then I wonder, why are you actually sitting on this chair if you totally hate your job and can't stand people? I don't know. It's just a thing. But another thing I noticed, before we are derailing too much, that when you deal with younger people from Japan, 20 something, and they are selling games on eBay, for example. Before 2021, we had this rule that the invoice of the item that you are buying actually has to be put on the outside of the envelope, so that customs can read the invoice and charge you for VAT and taxes and stuff. And many Japanese would say, I can't do that, please cancel your order. I was like, why? Don't you have a printer? Don't you have printers in Japan? Do we? And they were like, I'd rather not have the business than to have to print out a piece of paper and put it on an envelope. I was like, are you kidding me? You know?
There are so many situations like that in Japan. Japanese people do it to each other too, where you just need something like that's outside of what they normally do. And they're just like, nope, we can't do that. And I'm like, why? And they'll be like, because that we don't do that. And I'm like, but it takes like 5 seconds, but we don't do that. Sorry, we don't do that.
Yeah. So anyway. So now let me ask you. You mentioned in our email conversation before this interview that actually Vultar is also one of your mentors. So it seems you have a lot of mentors. Is that because you look up to the work they have done before you, or is that something you say, I would like to be like them? Because I would think that in this field of modding and repairing, wouldn't you prefer to be known for your own stuff rather than just, you know?
So,
I don't know.
So with mentors, I would say that I consider Voltar like somebody that I would go to for help if I had a question. Like, I don't understand why this is not working or why it's behaving this way. And I would explain the situation to him, and he would be able to give me some consultation.
Okay.
But he's a little bit different than the person that I would consider to be my real mentor, which would be iFix Retro, because he brought me up from the ground up, you know, like he is the one who I would get like little soldering kits from Amazon and work on them and then send it to him and, you know, have him look at it and, you know, pick it apart and find out what I did wrong or what could be better or whatever. And then he would eventually, you know, tell me like, okay, I want you to work on this game gear, install this screen in the game gear and install the capacitors in the game gear and blah, blah, blah. And let's see how you do. And then he would look at it and, you know, criticize it and tell me what I did right and tell me what I did wrong. And he would just share lots of tips and tricks with me and websites and stuff like that with important information. If I didn't understand something, I could ask him and he'd usually be able to, you know, give me a pretty good answer. And then eventually, the only reason why I'm on Twitter now is, or X or whatever, is because of him telling me, okay, now you're ready. You've done this long enough that you are ready to start getting into this group. And then he started introducing me to Voltar, and he started introducing me to other, you know, high level modders that I really respect, that everybody really respects. And it was at that point that he felt like, you know, I had done enough and learned enough and did good enough work that he could introduce me and say, you know, hey, this is, you know, this is Samtron, you know, I've been helping her and now, you know, now she's here. So, you know, I don't do everything like identical to them, but we do all like learn a lot from each other. And obviously since that time, I've met lots of other modders who I've also learned a lot from, who have helped me with different troubleshooting projects that I had and taught me how to do this or that, or why something's like this and what to look for. And honestly, I wouldn't even say that I'm entirely self-taught. I would say that, you know, it's like I absorbed knowledge from all of these people over the last several years, you know, and I still am. I still am today. Yeah.
But you also learned the basics like reading, schematics, understanding how they work and stuff.
Yeah, of course, there's like a lot of stuff that like they can't teach me over Discord text chat, you know, like they can't show me how to solder. They can't hold my hand and tell me, okay, now hold it like this. And, you know, they can't like tell me, you know, make the schematics make sense for me, you know, like they can, I can say, I don't understand what this is on the schematic, what this means, and they can tell me like, oh, that's capacitor coupling or blah blah blah, you know, and I'll be like, I have no idea what that is. So, you know, it's at that point where it's on me to do my own research and learn myself. And I've taken a lot of like online classes for electronics engineering.
Interesting.
Because there are like, free online classes or very cheap online classes through like MIT and different colleges and stuff where you can take, college level courses. But there's going to be lots of engineering stuff that is, I don't know that I will ever know because I don't have the math skills for it. And
math. Math, yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. I'm not like trying to, make a PC motherboard or anything, I'm fixing these old consoles. They're not that complicated. They honestly are not that complicated. So, you really only need to know the basics up to a certain point, and then you're good. If you're going to start working on, if you're going to be like Louis Rossmann or something, then you probably need to expand more,
But
and
Louis Rossmann is
I would
also
love to be on
self-taught.
that level. Yeah.
But Louis Rossmann is also self-taught.
Yeah, he is, but he's been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Way longer than me, longer than most of the other people I know. He's been around forever, had successful business and stuff. But yeah, like if you're, so before I like started doing this full time, I was working at Dell. And I can say that now because I haven't worked for them for a long time, but or at least for a while. And they have positions, engineering positions. They make their own motherboards and stuff like that. There's no way. There's no way I could do that. Absolutely not. I can say, yeah, I think their motherboards overall are badly designed, and I can sometimes tell you why, but I couldn't design it myself. There's
Right.
No, there's no way. And there's like, I've started getting into using apps that some of my friends have gotten me into, like LT Spice, which is an app that you can use to build your own schematics and build a circuit yourself, without having like the breadboard or whatever. And I started using that just so that I could understand how it all goes together and why, because there is like an order to it, and there is, it's science. So, it's better to do it hands-on than to just like watch videos. So that anybody that wants to get into it, I would definitely recommend downloading LT Spice. There's some apps on mobile phones that you can get that do similar stuff, like I don't even know if you can see it. Probably not.
Yeah.
But there's EE Helper is really good. There's a bread pad, which is like a breadboard app if you don't have like a breadboard handy. And there's iCircuit, where you can basically just build your own. It's really simple, and there are a lot of components that aren't in it for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's like a paid thing, but you can use it to build your own circuit to figure out, how does this work? Because sometimes you'll be looking at a schematic and it's like you're trying to figure out what the voltage is supposed to be on a certain pin, and it doesn't say, and you can't find like the information for that particular chip of what it's supposed to be. And so you'll take the voltage with your multimeter and it'll be like 2, and you'll be like, well, geez, is that what it's supposed to be? Is that low? Is that high? I don't know. So there was a time when, I didn't know that. And these kind of apps helped me to figure out what it's supposed to be.
One thing in doing all those interviews like today, I noticed is all around the world there is a void for people who know how to repair CRT screens.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow there are very little. There's a very little amount of people below 70 who know how to repair CRTs.
For sure. And you know why is because the reason why I think it is, and that is one of my goals, is to start working on those, recap them, install RGB mod on a CRT, stuff like that. I really want to get into like arcade cabinets at a certain point, but the reason why I think that is because they are freaking dangerous.
High voltage, yeah.
High voltage. They are freaking dangerous. Like,
but they
you
can't
can actually die.
I mean, they can't be so dangerous because otherwise those radio and TV repair people from the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s would have died like flies, no? So
I mean, I think that they were well trained on one. I think that back in the day, you know, people were well trained in one specific industry, and they did that all the time, you know, so they probably knew exactly what they were doing at all times. But if you're just like an entry-level person, self-taught, trying to fix your own CRT or install a CRT into a cabinet or something, it can be very, very dangerous. Like my husband, when he was so he does video game stuff too. I won't like tell too much about him, but he was building a candy cab, a Japanese arcade cabinet, and he was putting a CRT into it. And this was like a long time ago, before we got together, before we got married, and he was working on it in a way that, like, if he did actually like blow something and it like knocked him back, that he would hit something soft and not like something really hard that would also hurt him. Because getting shocked obviously hurts very bad, but also, you know, the blowback can injure you too. I've been shocked not from working on stuff, but just from faulty appliances when I was younger. And it hurts really bad. It hurts really bad. And when you finally get blown back, it also hurts very, very bad. I had a big bruise on my back because the force that it knocks you back is intense. So I think that's why, is because anybody who is smart enough to get into CRTs and be into that kind of stuff is also probably going to be smart enough to know that, like, this is serious. And you can, if you make a mistake, you can get hurt. And they, I think a lot of people are afraid of them, but I really want to do it eventually. You know, I'm working my way up to it.
Now, of course, I never asked you how old you are.
I'm 37.
Woo! Okay.
Yep.
So you are actually 5 years younger than myself. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. 42 over here. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking you are in your 30s because you were talking about a Dreamcast and so on in your youth, and I was like, then she can't be that old if that was one of her early consoles. And now,
that wasn't one of my early consoles. That was just like, you know, my teenage years.
Yeah, exactly, teenage years. And so I was like, okay, so she must be quite a bit younger than myself, if you do the math. So yeah. But there's one person, the only person I know that actually is self-taught about CRT repairs, and that's Richie Knuckles, who is often nicknamed the King of Arcades because he's restoring arcades that they look as from the factory when he's done with them. And he told me in the interview we did with him for the podcast, he said he learned how to repair CRTs by watching a training set of DVDs.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would love to get my hands on that. No, yeah, there's so so one of iFix Retro's, like, I don't know if he's like a mentor to him or not. They're very close. They're like, you know, they work together a lot on projects. They're both in New York City, but his name is Jose, and they both do a lot of arcade cabinet stuff. And Jose does a lot of CRT stuff on arcade cabinets. So, and he's definitely self-taught for sure. He did not go to university or anything like that. Like none of us. Well, actually, iFix Retro did, but he didn't go for that. He went for like business or something. But yeah, he's definitely self-taught. And I told them, I was like, one of these days I'm gonna go out there to New York City, and we're gonna work on one together. You're gonna teach me how to do it. I need somebody there behind me watching me do it, just in case I get hurt. You know.
So you want to repair TVs that were built before you were even born and stuff. Wow.
Maybe not that old. Maybe not that old, but the 90s and the 2000s for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I got the family CRT from my father's girlfriend, and they were about to toss it out. But what they didn't tell me is that it was half broken. So the screen was bent all the time, and you know, and it would shrink and shrink and shrink, and I think it was called tripod error. So it would be go smaller in the middle and go wider on the edges, and so I found somebody to repair it in my city, and it turned out that there was a shortcut on the motherboard. And there was actually also a crack on the motherboard. The power supply was broken. So a lot of things were broken. I got it fixed, and then it broke 3 years ago. It broke again. And then I found another guy who still repairs them, and he said it was just a net filter. But it was, I mean, you know, when you are calling those repair shops, and they are like TV from 95. That's actually the problem, because those TVs, they are modern enough that you have like firmware that you have to modify to let the TV know, hey, I have repaired that broken part. Here's the new part I put in. So you actually have to reprogram the TV so it will work after we repaired it, you know? And a lot of those older guys would say, this TV is too modern, I'm not touching it because I don't know how to reprogram the firmware. Because obviously you don't have access to the manufacturer's documents anymore, or to the education material that you could get on how to set it up properly, you know? So it's, I guess it's like for a car, you can't simply just replace what is broken, but you also have to tell the car, hey, I replaced this and that part, please relearn. So it's the problem that either the TVs are too old or they are too modern because they are on the edge of modern technology, you know, where there are computers already, you know.
Yeah, I don't know much about the firmware for the TVs. It's gotta, if there is something like that, it's gotta be, you know, somewhere on the internet, you know, and a lot of the modders do we program chips and stuff that we're gonna put in our consoles, and so I'm sure that that's probably what you would need to do if you needed to do that, is you would get your, you know, chip and hook it up to your programmer and load it up on your computer and then solder it back in, and probably you'd be good to go. But actually, I have no idea. I really don't.
Just telling you that I was told my TV is too modern. They can't repair it because they don't have the knowledge of how to reprogram the TV, you know. But yeah, anyway, turned out now I know somebody who still repairs that old stuff. But of course, the lady on the front desk when I was calling, she was like, from 95, is that one of those TVs with that big big cathode ray tube behind. I'm like, yes, that is why it's called CRT. You know, that's exactly that's where the name is coming from. And they were like, they were thinking I was joking with them, and they were actually two guys picking it up in their 20s. They have never seen such a TV before, and they were like, and this TV is still working, and I'm like, no, it's not, and that's why you are picking it up. You know,
That's
so
crazy.
so it's like not very easy in Germany, and everybody that I spoke to here among my retro friends, they all said, why don't you toss it and get a replacement for $10 on eBay? And it was like, well, it's a family TV, and I mean, in total, I spent like $500 for 2 repairs. You know, I'm probably
Honestly,
the only person who would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that I don't know what TV you have, but
Oh, it's a German brand, Telefon.
it's a German brand,
Yeah.
so it's probably not that easy to get, except for in Germany.
No, not anymore. No. And when I was doing my research on Google, I was actually reading that they often break down because of shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, how is it called? Shortcuts?
It's
No,
a short,
it's called
like a short circuit.
Short circuit. That's the term in English, right? So they often break down because of short circuits. Yeah, because but they were pretty expensive, like $4,000 or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's very, very expensive. Yeah, yeah.
I see. There are CRTs now that are so expensive on eBay, like $1,000 or more for an old CRT. Like they get very, very pricey nowadays because there are a lot of people collecting those as well as, you know, the games and the game consoles. So the price just keeps inflating and going up, you know, especially the TVs that were used for like security systems and stuff.
Wow.
Those ones are really high dollar TVs. Any like Sony Trinitron.
Wow, yeah, Sony Trinitron, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them are not so good for light guns and stuff.
Right, yeah, for sure.
And that's actually the main reason I'm having this TV, because, you know, duck hunt and so on. Yeah, you know.
Totally. Yeah, I just got one back there, and I haven't even like tested any like gun games on it yet. Haven't even set one up yet. In fact, I didn't even think about it until you just mentioned that, so I'm totally gonna do that.
I learned, however, that European TVs are different, because since 1990, our European TVs can handle also the Japanese, American NTSC, while still to this day, American TVs can't handle the European signal most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they can't. American TVs cannot handle any
Wow.
PAL stuff.
So you get half of the TV compared to what we get in Europe. It's totally mind blown, but never mind. Anyway.
Well, that's the great part about Europe, is that you guys have all these regulations that, you know, they try to sometimes do stuff that helps the people, whereas,
which is weird, because our European Union couldn't care less about the American TV standard, but for some reason, most TVs since 1990, you plug in the device and it simply switches the signal, and there you go. Simple plug and play.
that's good. They're the ones that are that force, you know, these big corporations to make stuff, you know, universal, and, you know, that you can't do this or that. They like force these big corporations, like the corporations that made the TVs, do that, you know, because they want to, you know, isolate their markets to capitalize more on, you know, sales. But for some reason Europe doesn't like that, and I think it's great, you know, because the United States is the opposite. So they make it so that you can't use, you know, PAL stuff over here, just as an example.
I mean, I got an American iPhone, and it's the first iPhone I've got with no SIM tray, no SIM card tray.
Oh yeah.
Only eSIM. And then a friend from America was told me, yes, because it's the American model, we don't have them anymore over here.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's interesting. And here in Germany, we only got introduced into eSIM like 3 years ago or something. Before that, most providers wouldn't offer that. But hey, it's super convenient for a reason. Anyway, there's one part of your history we didn't talk about, and I heard, I don't know how much that is true, that you also were on TV.
Yes. Yep, I was.
Can we talk about those times, because we didn't yet, and we totally should fill that void?
Sure, yeah. So during the time that I was making YouTube videos, there was a TV channel. I don't know if it was in Europe or not, but it was very popular in the United States, on digital cable, called G4 TV. And
okay, no, we didn't have that.
Yeah, G4 TV was a TV station that focused on mostly video game and other, you know, nerd culture type things, mostly video games though. And they had one TV show called Attack of the Show. And on Attack of the Show, they would have different segments about different subjects, and one of the subjects was like trending people on the internet, and they put me on that several times. Actually, it was focused on women, and it was really weird because it would be like a top 10 countdown of all of these women, and basically all of them would be like bathing suit models and stuff, you know, and they would be like, she's a hot bathing suit model and she just really loves Sonic the Hedgehog, you know, and we love that. And it's so fake. It was so fake.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really fake. And then they started putting me on there, and they put me as number 2 and number 1 several times. I only have one recording from that because that TV station is gone now. It doesn't exist, and all of I haven't been able to find the recordings for those episodes so far. Yeah, I only have one recording where I was number 2, but I was number 1 a few times. I was number 2 a few times, and it would just be like all bikini models and stuff. And then, and like celebrities like Mila Kunis and stuff. And then it would be like, they get to the top 1 or 2, and it'd be like, Samtron5000, she's on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I was like the only like real person doing anything with video games on those countdowns. It's really weird, but and not a model, you know, not like, you know, in a bikini and looking, you know, sexy or anything. I wasn't doing that ever. So yeah, I was on there quite a few times. The videos on my Instagram, on my YouTube. The one recording that I have.
So I have to check it out. Yeah. So how they found you due to YouTube?
Yeah, they just found my YouTube and started putting me on.
You. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about it at first until I started getting a bunch of comments on my videos. I saw you on G4
Are they just stole material from you? They didn't ask you like, hey, can we take your material and put it on the show?
No, they didn't ask me. No, they didn't ask me.
Okay. So I'm talking to a celebrity now, basically.
Yeah, like a F-tier celebrity, I guess.
Wow.
Really low level, but yeah, they actually at the same time as when I was going to Japan, they actually offered me an internship job at G4 TV, and invited me to come out to Los Angeles.
Which you didn't do.
I didn't do. I went to Japan instead. Yeah.
Did you ever regret your time in Japan due to all the negative experience you had in the end? No.
Definitely not. Even, you know, my time with my ex-husband was not like the marriage wasn't successful or whatever. I still talk to him all the time. Like,
really? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I have a really good relationship with him. He's remarried now. I'm remarried, you know, and we talk all the time about the kids and, you know, what's going on. And yeah, I have we've made up with each other, and, you know, we just see each other as like family. And you know, I'm always gonna, you know, let him be in the kids' lives, and if he's going to be in my kids' lives, and he's going to be in my life too, because they're in my life. So,
right.
You know, this is just the way it is. You know, I mean,
never... he's still the father, right? Yeah.
Exactly. He's still their dad, no matter what, and whatever happened between me and him, that's between us, and it's in the past, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. Right. So, and that's just to let you know, that's very different than the way that things usually are in Japan. In Japan, normally there's no such thing as joint custody. So once you split up, one parent gets the kids, and that's it.
Well,
they don't ever have to let the other parent see them again, ever.
So that is actually how it was way back in Europe and stuff.
Yeah. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. And a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is the mom will get the custody of the kids, and the dad
old-fashioned.
Yeah, very old-fashioned.
Yeah. Well, I actually know one person here in Germany that actually he got his daughter because the mom is actually a truck addict. So they gave the care, I don't know how you say it in English.
Custody.
Custody, exactly.
Yeah.
So they gave the full custody to him rather than to her.
Good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, if she's not, you know, doing the right thing, but at least in Japan, even if the dad didn't do anything really wrong and he's not a bad guy, not bad to the kids or whatever, the mom can make it so that they don't ever see him again, and that's very common. So he technically doesn't have any right to see the kids, but I want him to, you know, I want my kids to know him and have him, and I would always consider him family, even though, like, you know, a bunch of crazy stuff happened back then. I don't regret it. It was like, you know, crazy time. I got to experience a lot of things that a lot of people never got to experience. I was, do you remember that big earthquake and tsunami and nuclear reactor thing?
2011,
yeah, I was in Japan.
Yes.
I was in Japan for that.
Wow.
So I was in Japan for that. Okay. I was in that earthquake. I was
really. Whoa.
Yeah, and I was there for the whole aftermath, and
wow,
those were crazy times. Like, people think that COVID was crazy. No, doesn't even compare to Japan after that earthquake.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, here's the thing. So you somehow, if you say he is different than the normal Japanese, that means you influenced him in a way, or he is more the open-minded Japanese person in the first place?
He is what, so have you ever heard the term weeaboo? It's like somebody who really likes Japan. Okay, so weeaboo is somebody like a Western person or just somebody who's not Japanese, and they love Japan. They love anime, they love games, they love they love sushi and all that stuff.
People. Yeah.
Well, there's another term but it's for America, and it's called an Ameribu. And I would call him an Ameribu. So he loves American culture, and he always wanted to listen to American music and play American video games. And like, nobody in Japan plays Xbox. I can tell you that right now. Nobody in Japan plays Xbox. Nobody plays Call of Duty. Like, those are not Japanese popular games in Japan. But he likes that stuff. I don't know why, but he thinks that stuff is cool. You know, like, his favorite food is steak. So like,
okay.
Yeah, so he's I would call him an Ameribu. But he yeah, he's weird guy. He's definitely a weird guy, but you know, it is what it is.
Depends. Always depends who you ask. If you ask a couple of people, they will tell you I'm very weird, and I'm beyond normal.
For sure, I'm not weird. I'm not weird. I'm normal.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview the toxicity, the toxic experience you had in the retro scene and repair scene and so on, you know, because I don't know, I never had such thoughts. The only thoughts I had when I saw your pictures on X was like, hopefully she takes those nails off before she does any crucial soldier.
Oh no, I do not.
Really?
Yep, I do all my soldering with these nails. So
but
I've got lots of videos of it too.
But I saw some close-ups of your hands where you didn't have those fake nails on.
Yeah, there was so these nails, they're not like glued on, they're actually like really on there. But there was a time earlier this year where I hurt one of my nails. Ooh. And it broke, and I had to take them all off, and I didn't wear them for like 4 months to let my nails heal and grow out naturally. Sometimes you have to do that, but I've been wearing long nails for like 6 years or something.
So you got the training how to deal with them.
Yep. First I was fixing cell phones and tablets with long nails, and then I moved on to PCs, and then I moved on to this stuff.
Interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's my like kind of my special trait, is that I do it with the long nails. So, and then everybody says, "Wow, how do you do anything with those nails? How do you go to the bathroom with those nails?" And
ooh, don't spare me the details.
Yeah. But no, it's just normal. I'm just like used to them, and it's like they're not even there, so I don't even really.
Interesting.
It's just like my fingers longer, I guess.
As long as you don't hurt yourself or cut yourself or whatever, or slice yourself open or whatsoever.
No.
Now I would be interested to know, do you have any future plans except CRT repairing?
Just my future plans would be that I want to get into arcade cabinets, specifically like Japanese handicabs like Astro City and stuff like that. Get into all of the arcade stuff, which is far more complex than any of the stuff that I'm working on right now. And then I would very much love to start at some point getting into working on more complex techniques, like soldering techniques like reballing and stuff, because there are consoles that, like the PlayStation 3, that are going to become retro soon, and they're not that well manufactured either. And some of those chips are going to need to be reballed. You know, they're not just like normally soldered on there. They're not as easy to work on, and I don't know how to work on them yet. I don't accept work like that right now, but I really want to get into that. And then also just working on other, you know, complex boards like graphics cards, and maybe not like really new ones, but maybe like 10 years back graphics cards, you know, because there's also, I'm sure you know, being in the Commodore 64 circle, there's a lot of retro computer fans out there. Like there's a YouTube channel that I watch all the time called LGR, and he does all these like retro PC stuff.
Yes.
And it's not, a lot of it's not super old. It's like from when I was starting to get into computers, you know, in the late 90s and stuff. But I would love to like work on some of those boards that aren't working well anymore, you know, and like recap those, put new capacitors on, or, you know, just work on them, you know, and get them fixed up. And that would probably be like the normal, or not the normal, but the path that I would like to go down, to just get more, just to expand into different things that I'm interested in. And then, you know, I don't know if I'll offer like a service like that, but I want to learn that, you know, at least just like work on it for myself.
Too bad that you're not living in the European Union. I would send you my stuff to repair. Now that
Yeah.
I know you better, yeah. Too bad. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes people get new boyfriends, then they marry, and then they are not offering the service anymore, you know, and fade away. That's also a bit a pity for me.
Is that what happened to the girl that was working on your stuff before a long time ago?
Yeah, I've never spoken to her since, and I didn't see any repairs from her ever since.
Oh, dang it. I was going to ask you to introduce me to her, because like I really want to meet other women who do this kind of stuff.
I mean, I have a pod. I made a podcast interview. I can send you the link later. Yeah.
For sure.
Which is always actually the interesting thing, because most people are like, my English is not good enough. So, but with you it's easy because you are a native speaker. Didn't have to convince you.
True. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting to talk to you, because, as I said, normally I spoke to people who learned electronics and stuff, and they were like, yeah, it's simple, I learned it, like, boop, okay, not much to talk about. But you had this mentors thing and self-taught and doing this and that. Now, may I ask, what is actually your educational background? Probably something totally different, right?
So...
Is that not a secret, of course?
So I'm not like embarrassed about this or anything, because this is so long ago, but didn't go to college, didn't graduate high school. I dropped out in the 10th grade, the year 10. Dropped out in 2001.
Drop out, what they call, okay.
Yeah, I left school, and then I took like in the United States, there's a test called the GED, which is like the equivalent of graduating from high school. So I went and took that test, and like right after I left high school, pretty much, like maybe a year after I left high school, I went and took that test at a local college and passed it immediately. Like it was very, very easy. And that's it. I went to Japanese language school for a while. that's about it.
Okay. So the thing is, either the test was very easy or you are exceptionally smart.
I think the test is easy, but when I was there were like other people there who were like, this is my third time taking this test. It's so hard. I cannot pass it. And I was like, really? I didn't study at all. I thought it was going to be easy. And then I went and took it, and then I got the results back, and it was like 99%, 99%,
Wow.
99%. I was like, I guess it's not that hard, but I don't know how smart I am. My kids are very smart, and their dad is very smart, but he also didn't finish school. So
wow, okay. So a family of dropouts.
Yeah, yeah, but my kids are not gonna be doing that. They're not. I'm not gonna allow that.
It's always like you have to do better than myself. Yeah.
At least try. I didn't try.
Was that just laziness, or was it other circumstances? Really?
Yeah, I just didn't want to go, and also the area that I lived in Oklahoma was a very bad area. It was like very low wage, poverty type area, and the high crime area. And the high school that I went to was like scary. Like there were metal detectors at the doors, and like students that are in gangs, and a lot of fighting. And if you even just like look at another girl or look at maybe her boyfriend or something in the wrong way, they're ready to fight you, and they'll like start calling you out. And I've seen people like flip desks over and yell insults at the teacher, and you just can't learn anything. And the school was just falling apart. Like the roof was leaking all the time, and it's just like a really bad school. And so I was like, I don't want to go here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore.
So I'm lucky to see you became somebody better, and you found your way into a highly successful society.
Yeah,
That's
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky. Forever grateful for everything.
Now when I saw your email address, did I do something wrong, or is there no homepage connected to that domain?
There's no homepage connected to it right now. I'm working on a website, and I'm gonna publish it really soon. I'm just like fine-tuning it before I put it up, but there will be a website connected to that.
To the Samtron, okay, domain.
Yeah, Samtron5000.com.
Ooh. That 5,000, where did you get that from?
So the way that I got this nickname was that way back in the day, like in 1999 or probably 2000. It was about the same time that I met my now husband on IRC. I had a Samtron monitor. And I was like, my name is Sam too. And then there was this like really cringy band back then called Powerman 5000. Ooh. And I just like took the 5000 from it for some reason. I didn't even really like that band, but I just like thought it sounded good. And so that's how I came up with the name, was Samtron5000 from my stupid monitor.
Okay. Well, I thought it sounded more like a metal detector or whatever. Like yeah.
Now there's like lots of people who use Tron in their names. Like back then there wasn't, but nowadays there's a lot of people. Yeah. There's like John Tron and Baby Tron, and there's like so many Trons out there on the internet now, but I'm the original.
And I guess Tron is mostly coming from electronics.
I think so. I don't know. Like, I don't really know why they picked like the other people that use that in their name, like why they picked that, because they don't do anything with electronics. Like I was already into that in my early teen years. So when I first picked that, and but I don't know why they picked it. I have no idea. But that is where it came from. That's why like the monitor Samtron is like Samsung Electronics. So Samtron.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's I've been using that name 23 years or something. I don't know. Some long time.
Nice, nice. Now I've learned a lot about you today, more than I've ever expected. We went pretty deep. So
yeah.
thanks for your openness. Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Wonderful.
It's gonna be crazy.
So you said you didn't talk a lot in a long time, so you really went under and didn't do much in public recently?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. There's not any recent interviews with me talking about anything that I've done in the past or things that I'm doing now or whatever.
I didn't find any, so that is fine. Okay. Is there actually a reason for that?
I think that a lot of people still think that I'm gone. Like I was gone for so long that they like just put it in their head that like it happens to me all the time where I was doing Twitch for years. Back in Oklahoma after I came back to the United States, I did Twitch for a long time. And I would every single time I would get like several people and they'd be like, "Oh my God, Samtron. Oh my God, Samtron's back. Wow, I used to watch your videos all the time." There are lots of like popular YouTubers who, will tell me, I used to watch your videos all the time way before I made videos. You inspired me to make videos.
Wow.
I'm not gonna like name drop who because I don't have their permission, but there are like several people who have told me that. But there's still people now who are like realizing like, oh my God, Samtron, I used to watch your videos all the time 15 years ago. I thought you disappeared, because I really did drop off the face of the earth. Wow. Like I just stopped posting.
So I'm totally lucky you agreed to do this interview.
I guess so. It's not that big of a deal. I don't mind. I never would have said no.
Because I approached you knowing nothing about you. I was like, yeah, she seems like a nice person. Let's write to her. And I was like, and then you were like asking me questions like, where did you find me? How much do you know about me? And I was like, okay, so probably this doesn't happen a lot.
yeah, it really doesn't. And I just have like, the reason why I asked that is because I just have this really long history in like video games on the internet. Like there's a lot of other stuff that we haven't talked about. There was a TV show about video games that I was supposed to do that was financed by Dell a long time ago before I went to Japan, around the same time as when I was on G4 with another guy who was very popular at the time called Sean Baby. He wrote in Electronic Gaming Magazine. He wrote like a segment in Electronic Gaming Magazine where it was like Angry Video Game Nerd before Angry Video Game Nerd ever existed.
James Rolfe, yeah.
Yeah, so Sean Baby did that before he did that, where he would go and rip on crappy video games in Electronic Gaming Magazine. And so I was supposed to do a show with him that was financed by Dell, and then Dell canceled it.
Too bad.
Right before we actually got it
too bad.
Going, And so like that's just like one example of like, I don't know. there's just like such a long history of like me and the internet and video games that it's weird. You know, it's really weird. I don't know anybody else that has that much for that long, you know, under one specific name.
I mean, there are some people, yeah, right, but many people are just retiring recently, saying like, yeah, they don't want to do any repairs anymore, you know, and
Yeah.
stuff. So, but actually, people like you, or for example, we had Kelsey Lewin also.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
she's kind of, she is basically what I would have probably become if I had bought that game store
Yeah.
way back in 2005.
So
You know?
she's actually 8 years younger than yourself. So, and I think now that my guests are younger who I interview than myself, there is still hope, you know, because
For sure.
people being 40 or older, I often hear like, when we die, nobody will pick up the torch and be invested in repair and be invested in preserving the history. And then we have people like you. For example, you say you want to learn more about arcade repairs and CRTs. And then you have people like Kelsey Lewin. But Kelsey Lewin is a bit different because she isn't into computer history. She isn't into computer game history. She only does console game history. But I guess somebody else will pick up the computer part. So in a way, when I'm dead in 40 years, 30 years, you will be still around and Kelsey Lewin will still be around. And you hopefully keep up the knowledge and the preserving of knowledge, because otherwise it would die out. You know, that's actually the problem. You know.
That's the whole point of what I'm doing, is to preserve, because like I said, I don't like what has happened to the collecting community, and it's, the barrier of entry is so high for younger people who want to get into it and are interested in it, and where they really only have two options. They can play a ROM on their computer, or like some, you know, online thing, or they can spend thousands of dollars. And part of what I'm trying to do is make it so that they can play these games on the original hardware without having to spend the thousands of dollars, and they can enjoy it in a modern way if they want to, you know, and bring it into the modern age while still being, you know, like it was before. Because even my kids, when they were very young, they're 14 and 11 now, but when they were very young, I raised them on retro games too. They got Super Famicom and all kinds of stuff in Japan, and you know, they played those old games, so they have an appreciation for, you know, the retro games. And you don't see that a lot with kids nowadays. They just jump straight to Minecraft and Fortnite. So you know, can you really call yourself a gamer if those are the only games you play? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I met people who are IT specialists and never had DOS in their life and only grew up with Windows XP and younger. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But you have to have some appreciation for, you know, the history and stuff if you're really into video games. And I think that there are a lot of young people, you know, the younger generations that like it and want to get into it. And you'd be surprised, a lot of my customers, not all, not most, but several, are younger people who have these older consoles and they want to get them repaired, or they want to get them modded, and they are a lot younger than me, and I'm very impressed by that, and I'm very happy about that, because I'm just like, I want to keep this going, because these things are finite things, and they're not going to produce more of these. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
we got to take care of the ones that we have.
Well, I mean, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It really depends.
Yeah, there are like reproduction boards for like the Nintendo and stuff like that, where you can basically build an NES if you have all the right stuff and with a reproduction board for sure. But like PlayStation 2, nobody's gonna reproduce this. You can't.
Right.
Sony made it too hard.
But with the PlayStation, they have one advantage. For example, I got a Tekken board in my arcade. Not right now in this arcade, but I have it. I can put it in. And Tekken is basically a PlayStation 1 without a CD drive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love those old arcade boards. Those are one of the things that I really want to get into. That's very expensive. It's gonna cost a lot to get into that, but yeah, buying those old arcade boards.
So if you ever wondered why the PlayStation port looked so identical to the arcade, it's basically the same hardware running it, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, Sony was pretty cheap on those things, like rip off the CD drive, and there you go.
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay, we exceeded 2 hours. Oh my God. Totally went into it. And as I heard, we have to make a second part at some point in the future.
Sure, of course. Yeah, we can talk about like actual games if you want to, like games that I really like. I don't know if you know this, but I've always been known as the Earthbound girl. So
ooh, yeah,
we can talk about that. I talk a lot about Earthbound.
I have to admit, I always hated RPGs.
Really?
Yeah, I'm this party building and experience points building up, or like, wow, no, grinding for more experience from level to level, not my thing. But what I really like is point and click adventures.
Oh.
And the only genre I'm actually good in is racing games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So one of my favorite games actually is actually Test Drive, the original from '87.
Heck
from
yeah.
From the Commodore 64. That's one of my things. And
That's
I was
cool.
actually surprised to see that the American release runs so much smoother.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah. Well, of course you have 60 hertz compared to 50 hertz.
True.
Of course, so it's running faster. Yeah.
That would be why.
I mean, I was actually learning that you can get kinda an NTSC 64 if you just change the clock timer chip and change the video interface chip with an American one.
Yep.
It's called clock generator. So you exchange the clock generator IC, and you exchange the video interface, and then you get a kinda NTSC 64 that still runs on 50 hertz because I'm in Europe, but it's close enough for most games to still run.
To still run properly, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, but of course some timing critical demos will crash because they say like, it's not 100%, but most games like racing games, they don't care. They will simply run, but it's so amazing, you know. And I was like, wow, in America those games are a lot more enjoyable. I don't know, the speed difference is like 12% or whatsoever, but it's really making a difference, especially for racing games, because in Europe it's more like a slideshow, running a bit faster.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, and people are still like still obsessing over refresh rates and stuff today with modern monitors. Like my son, I'm not really that much into modern PC stuff, but my son is
Okay.
very into it, and he has to have like the highest refresh rate on his monitors, like because he's like, it makes a difference in my game if it's too low, blah blah blah. I'm like, how does it make a difference? I don't understand. I don't know anything about this. And like, I worked for Dell for years, and I still don't like, I just don't care about that much. But like, yeah, I think I probably would if I was in Europe and I played a game with 50 hertz and then I played it with 60 hertz and I realized like, holy crap, my racing game plays completely different on the US version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I really would feel the difference on something like that.
Exactly, yes. And also things like the Mega Drive, if you put it to 60 hertz, it's a totally different experience. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to play some PAL stuff so I can see the difference.
Well, some people say PAL is the worst standard, but I guess that depends on what you are used to. I mean,
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, they made some. There are some smart releases like Batman on the Mega Drive. I don't have those switchless mods on my Mega Drive. I have one of those original mods where you still have to switch. Right, where you still have to switch, and it bridges the traces on the motherboard. And actually, when you switch it, the game instantly notices the speed differences and adjusts. And that like totally mind blown for me that they were forward thinking enough to make that happen.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. I have not even looked into that like difference between PAL and US and 50 hertz and 60 hertz. Like, I have no experience with that yet.
Such mods are not very common for you?
Mm-mm.
Well, over here in at least I can speak about Germany. I have a Japanese Saturn that is modified with an automatically region changing mod, multi-region. It's a multi-region mod. So I can play all the Japanese exclusive titles like Power Drift, for example, never released outside of Japan for the Saturn. And I would never wanted anything less. Or for example, I got the Japanese Afterburner for the Mega Drive, which is actually exactly the same like the non-Japanese Afterburner. The only exception is the game expects the Japanese Charizard ROM to be active.
Oh.
Even though it's never used in the game, but it has to be active, It doesn't make sense. But it has to be active for whatever reason. And if it isn't active, the cartridge doesn't even run. It just
wow.
Yeah.
So, I do a lot of region mods. I just don't do a lot of region stuff I guess region stuff with PAL. Like, I don't see a lot of PAL stuff come through. Actually, I haven't ever seen PAL stuff come through I had one guy who said that his PC engine was PAL, he said he got it in France, but it was Japanese. So I have no idea. But yeah, I don't see anything with PAL. I do see a lot of like Japanese region swaps and like this chip that I have right here. I was just programming it to have a region-free BIOS on it for the Sega CD for a customer. So yeah, I do lots of region mods. I just don't do a lot with PAL stuff.
Interesting. So it looks like the Americans are not so much after the European exclusive stuff.
Not from what I can see so far, but obviously I, don't know everything yet. So I'm sure that there probably is somebody out there who'd be like, yes, they are. Americans love it. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, you also have to be careful because one of the last games on the NES, for example, was DuckTales 2, and it's
Mhm.
also one of the rarest. And
Mhm.
then I found a copy in France for like 100 euros, which would be like $115. And it was like, wow, that's pretty cheap compared to normally what you pay normally for. And I must admit the French seller must have thought what an idiot, because the thing is, I can't play the game because it's one of those rare NES games that were translated for every region. So the game is in French.
Oh wow, dang it.
So I put it in uh, to see if it works, and then I never touched it again. So, so I got a game that I can't play because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't
Dang it.
understand this thing. So it was a total waste of money, honestly. Now I have one of the rarest NES games that I can't even play. But
You
that's
can't
life.
even play.
Yeah.
You just look up the walkthrough on GameFAQs. GameFAQs.com. Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. Or YouTube, whatever. All
Mhm.
right. Hey, was very nice talking to you.
Yeah, for sure. Same
Very
to you.
appreciate your time.
If you need anything worked on, come and see me, Samtron5000, on all social media platforms. My website, samtron5000.com, will be up very shortly, possibly by the time you're seeing this.
Talk to you then. Bye bye.
Okay,
Thanks a
bye.
lot.
See ya.
Bye bye.